Hello, this is Editing Kateri. I am going to apologize to our listeners for this episode. Not because we said or did anything like wrong or offensive, but just because we are absolute fucking goblins this entire episode and we're not making a whole lot of sense. So please enjoy our insanity. Hello, everybody. It's Kateri.
And Owen on Kylock.
And welcome to Tarot Talk by the Soothsayer's Tea. We are going to be discussing strength? Question mark.
Strength? Strength?
Strength? Question mark. Why the question mark?
There's a
Yeah,
couple reasons for the question mark.
there's a few reasons. The main reason why we have question mark at the end of strength, we're just going to get right into the history of this card. I think we can all figure out what strength is. We don't have to go over the keywords. You have the little white book. You can figure it out. But
Mhm.
so, the issue with strength, or the lack of issue of strength, because honestly, this card is in a not so traditional, when I say traditional, I mean like old traditional position. So, traditionally, in old tarot decks, strength is actually the 11th card, while justice was the 8th card. But when the rider-waite Smith came out and A.E. Waite um, created that deck or co-created deck with Pamela Smith, he did switch the position of those two cards in order to make them a better fit within the astrological correspondences that was kind of established with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So the eighth card is associated with Leo and 11th with Libra because in numerology, the 11 with scales and the 8 being the infinity symbol within strength. So he kind of fucked it up, basically. If you want to know the main reason why it's not traditional, it's because he just wanted to fuck with it more than anything.
Yeah, he was kind of a little bitch about it. He refused to admit that he was possibly wrong in a certain sort of way. He followed the very specific hermetic um, astrological correspondences.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I just know that most decks are going to have it in the eighth position, so that's why we're going to discuss it as such. I'm a dirty slut, and I don't care what position it's in. I'll take it with her either way, because I find that it can fit in different spots depending, like when it comes to the cards surrounding it, because they do kind of have the same type of flavor. It's almost like they're both bags of chips. It just depends on what flavor you want.
Yeah, they're the same brand. They're just different. They just
Yeah.
taste a little different.
And I think that comes down to um, strength was originally called fortitude, which is actually part of the four cardinal virtues, which is within this mental plane that we're walking into when it comes to the major arcana.
Oh yeah, welcome to the mental plane, everybody.
Yep. This is where everything's gonna get all
This
mind
is where it
fucky.
goes to shit.
Yep. And again, so we're starting here with strength or justice if you feel like it, but honestly, we'll discuss that in the future. It's coming from the chariot going into strength, which is going into hermit. I'm okay with strength being in this position because, again, it kind of fits with the chariot and with the hermit. We're not going to try to force justice in a spot, but I think that justice also fits here as well, really, at the end of the day. But for the sake of simplicity, it's strength today.
Hmm.
I just recently finally like segmented my Terra Volatile deck, and they did actually give an alternative for strength, which was fortitude, which I think is actually a really, really good, like, it's a really good description of the card itself. It's fortitude.
I miss the days when it was, in fact, fortitude because I genuinely the renaming of it to strength has caused so many misconceptions and so much like not misinformation but misinterpretation, at least in my opinion, of the card
Yeah.
that I miss fortitude. Fortitude is a much more apt name, in my opinion.
Yeah, because if we're looking at the RWS, we got the pretty lady and the pretty lion, and it just really represent again. the woman represents the enlightenment, spiritual powers, while the beast kind of represents animals, like animalistic passions and like cravings, right? And to show that the woman is very carefully kind of closing the beast's mouth is indicating that it's not a very loud card at all. It's very quiet. Again, fortitude is a really key word there. And again, where I see the connection there is between the other cardinal virtues, which we will very much so touch upon when we come across the cards. Fortitude is it's very important. And I think that especially after the chariot, which in comparison to the chariot's dumb and it kind of works off instinct and kind of like natural talent. The strength card is a lot more intelligent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of, shoot me if I say this word again, balance in the strength card, in that a lot of what we learn from it is learning how to control sort of our more primal urges.
Yeah.
I find that, at least when I look at it, I think very strongly of closing your mouth, quite literally and figuratively, when it comes to sort of controlling your emotions and recognizing that they are valid and that sometimes emotional reactions and emotional outbursts are helpful,
Mm-hmm.
but thinking them over sort of logically and more with your head is usually the most beneficial.
Yeah, it's definitely it's courage, right? It's courage not in a loud way. It's very like it's quiet courage, endurance, and it's really kind of an ability
You
to kind of
sound like an Instagram poet right now. I
I
just want to
know.
let you know that.
Listen, shut your hole.
It's
Shut your
giving milk
hole.
and honey.
It is very milk and honey. Oh my god, I'm gonna be an author now.
Quiet courage, and I don't know what else you said, but
I
I'm
hate
sure
my
it was
mom
also
or
very
whatever.
poetic.
I hate my mom and I like boys or something. I don't know. But it really is. It's that's all I got from that book, honestly.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, it's really it's the ability to kind of confront fear too, right? It's when I say it's courage, I don't mean like girl bossing. I mean like it's just that it doesn't give a shit because the chariot doesn't give a shit out of almost ignorance. Um, Basically, strength doesn't give a shit because it's gutted. It's already got the
Yeah,
shit taken care of.
yeah. Strength is very much. I can very, very clearly see in my mind the progression of the chariot to strength, because in my mind, the chariot is very much like breaking the door down and wow, I'm here and I'm getting my results and I'm getting what I want. Whereas strength is realizing that the door wasn't actually locked and that you can just open the door and take what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if we do want to very gently touch on if justice was in this position, because there is decks out there that do have justice in this position, including the Terra Volatile, which I prefer, I guess again my preferred deck right now. Um, the kind of connection between like the chariot and justice is that you can break those doors open so truth can prevail. So there's still a spot for justice in this position. Again, like I said, I like a position both way now, but it's up to you how you want to do your deck. And again, most times you're going to see strength in this position more than anything.
Mm-hmm. I think personally, when it comes to like actually reading tarot, I prefer strength in this position. But when we're looking at it in terms of the three sort of comparisons, so like compare like each card's comparison in the different like planes and realms, I feel like justice fits a little bit better. But in like actual practical terms, I do actually feel like strength is the better of the better of the two is the eighth card.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter.
It literally does not matter. At the end of the day, you're shuffling your tarot deck. It doesn't actually matter the order.
There's a
Like,
reason why like weight could actually fuck with this position and it not make an uproar is because it doesn't matter.
yeah, I mean, it's stupid. It's very pedantic to if someone is telling you that you are wrong because of this, you can tell them that you can refer them to me first of all, because that is kind of rude. And also ignore them. They are just being very pedantic and very like it's the same way that like people will get upset in Ireland when you say Gaelic instead of Irish when like, sorry, Gaelic to refer to the Irish language instead of like Gaelga or Irish. And that is because like sort of the majority of people will use Gaelga or they will use Irish, but there are still quite large regions in the never eat shredded wheat west of Ireland that use Gaelic as a term for Irish. And like it's an actual translation. Like it's not wrong.
Yeah.
It's just pedantic.
Yeah. And with that being said, I'm not going to set the expectation that if you feel very strongly about this card being in the 11th position instead due to like another esoteric reason, if you have your own reasoning for wanting that in this position or having it in the 11th position, that's fine. What I'm getting at is that don't shit on people if they like it in different ways. You know what? We're equal opportunists here. Like whatever position you want, baby, it's all good. Don't kink shame.
Yeah. I'm sorry, this reminds me of a conversation that we had before we started the podcast, and now I think we very quickly need to move on.
So the
because
next
I think you know what I'm talking about.
exactly. Let's not kink shame anything. But we're getting into the next card, which is going to be Hermit or the Hermit itself. I find that this is again, this is where I like strength in this spot, is because it kind of shows that once you kind of get to that point of fortitude, you can actually deal with the solitude. Solitude is no longer a fear for you.
I was fully so I have this little thing in my brain called being an idiot, and when you said the Hermit, I interpreted that as the magician, and I was like,
What the
the
hell?
next card is the magician? did we do a what? And I started to lose my mind a little bit. But yeah, I
Yeah.
100% agree with that. I think the Hermit, people often when they see the Hermit, they're usually very afraid of it. They're like, okay, well, I don't want to isolate myself. I don't want to be away from all these things and all these people. And I'm like, okay, but what you need to understand is that the Hermit has just experienced a lot similar to you. And if the Hermit, in quotation marks, because I'm talking about you, and this is a direct about you, anyone listening to this podcast, I don't need to be a tarot reader to know that if you're listening to this podcast, you need the Hermit because you're gonna burn yourself out.
Yeah.
And the Hermit knows I'm gonna start talking about the Hermit now. Strength is knowing when to stop and when you're going to burn yourself out and when you need to become the Hermit and isolate yourself and relax and
Yeah.
chill.
And this is where the fool's journey is very important because there is parallels, there is correspondences with that story that goes along, and that's where you can kind of find connections. And again, when we pop into, if we just pop justice in that portion, it kind of indicates that if you want to find truth, you got to do it alone, right? So, like, again, we can swap back and forth on that one. The only place where I don't find strength is the best in this position is, again, if we're looking through the practical plane, the mental plane, the spiritual plane. We do have the magician, strength, and the devil. I would find that justice would fit better in that kind of row a little better, but that's me just splitting hairs. Just for the sake of simplicity, because I know a lot of people are probably their brains are exploding right now, we'll just keep strength here. I would think that the magician is willpower. It's indicating willpower. You need to have the strength in your willpower to be able to resist temptation, because the magician and the devil has a lot of parallels, because sometimes the magician is an asshole.
Yeah, sometimes the magician takes things a little bit too far, gives in to temptation, and some might even say becomes the emperor. But
Yes.
I won't
Hopefully the
say that.
chariot. Hopefully the chariot.
Hopefully. But yeah, I mean, I
Yes.
agree.
Strength is a really good place for it. Although, again, I find, again, justice can work just as well. Again. But if we want to go on this argument, and again, for the sake of simplicity, is that it's kind of buffering that you need to bolster your fortitude, bolster your strength before it all goes haywire.
Yeah, and then even like parallel, like the parallel to that, just to give the example, we will of course talk about this when we actually do justice. When we do justice to the
When we do
justice card,
justice, yes.
yeah. But the parallel there and why, at least I think both of us, at least I think I speak for both of us when I say that the reason that we believe justice fits there a little bit better when it comes to those parallels is because of the truth aspect when it comes to the magician and the devil, because it's very much more black and white in terms of comparison between like justice, the devil, and the magician.
Yeah. Exactly.
Strength is a
And
little bit more nuanced.
exactly. Speaking of which, speaking about nuance, what's your experiences?
My experiences with strength. Okay. Well, quite often actually, strength comes before the hermit, and I feel like that is partially obviously like in the actual deck itself it comes before the hermit, but in a reading, strength and the hermit come up together all of the time for me. And I feel like
That
that's a
means you need to
huge part of what
shuffle your deck.
yeah. Yeah. Shut the fuck up. But yeah. No. But I well because obviously we've talked about the difference in clientele before, blah 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 blah. Previous
Yeah.
episodes, you know what to do. Um, for me, the strength card is always coming up for people who are usually around sort of exam season or very big periods in their life where they are pushing themselves to the absolute limit. They have been the chariot and they have done every single thing that they possibly could to get where they are and ignored everything else. But now everything else is sort of coming crashing back in a little bit, and you need to have the strength to stop in your tracks and realize that if you keep sort of trampling on and going forward, you're going to leave a lot of the things that you love and a lot of the things that are good for you behind in search of this thing that you don't even really know you're looking for. And so for me, strength comes up a lot in terms of, and I hate to say this, inner strength, because that is always what people jump to when they see strength. They're like, okay, it means that you will be a strong, confident individual. And it's like, that's not always what inner strength is. A lot of the time, inner strength is realizing when you need to step back and when you need to isolate yourself. So for me, there's a lot of like strength and the hermit are sort of like 1.5 cards together because they come up together for me so often. There's a lot of overlapping.
Yeah.
So yeah, it also usually indicates to me if it comes up for a person in your life and less so you, it's usually a very good sign because it's someone who will be there for you. It's someone who's
Yes.
very pure in intention and pure in spirit. And I like that. I love a good strength person in my life. Like if my best friend was a strength, I'd be living my best life.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't have much to really add to that because I think your experiences are very similar to my own. You're going to shoot me and the podcast is going to get canceled. Um,
Again,
this this card is like what was it? Keep calm and carry on in a fucking card.
Jesus fucking Christ. First, you're on Facebook. What? And now that, oh my God, who are you? Who is this person standing in front of me? I
No, I know
I think this
exactly
is
what I
it.
said with this. I hate that thing more than anything on God's green
Oh.
earth, but it's tell me it's wrong. Tell me it's fucking wrong right now. It's not.
Uh,
Wow, we've lost our goddamn minds.
oh.
No, but seriously, it's really just a card of just stay the course. Just whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Honestly. And if it's not that, it's like, hey, what are you afraid of? You need to not be afraid of and just do it.
Yeah, it's a very, I don't want to say simplistic card because we just went through this with the chariot, but the little like the bridge between the chariot and strength is it's there. Followed by the hermit, it is also there, and they're just three very unnuanced, simple cards.
Yeah, which is funny because when we were discussing like, oh, the mental plan's gonna be really hard, and we're like, actually, it's not
Yeah,
gonna be that hard. It's been really hard to find pop culture connections. I will tell you that
that's
much.
what it's been fucking hard for.
Yeah, that's
But we
where
did
we've
it
been.
because we are amazing and we are, in fact, the best tarot readers on this planet.
Absolutely. So when it comes to when we get into the minor arcana, we're going to be really discussing the minor arcana as kind of like pop culture phenomenons. When we say phenomenons, like
Yeah.
actual like
Situations.
situations and like scenes. They're like very,
Hmm.
very because I think that the minor arcana are more actionable, with the exception of the
Tropes.
yeah, they're more tropes exactly. They're more
Hmm.
actionable with the exception of the courts, which should be a mess, an interesting mess. But
Jesus Christ. I forgot we have to do that.
yeah,
I
but
forgot we have to do that.
But when it comes to the majors, again, they can kind of represent like character types. And again, that comes back into the Fool's Journey where he's meeting all these individuals and what they represent.
Yeah. And speaking of individuals on the Fool's Journey, let's talk about She-Ra. Let's talk about Adora. I think the full title of the show is She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
Mhm.
Someone can correct me on that if they're a nerd. But moving forward, I absolutely loved the show to bits, and the sort of the character development of Adora, in that she is so, in the beginning, okay, she has always been a more pure, because, okay, for those of you who don't know, and I swear to God, none of you can give out to me for spoiling this, because this show has been out for years, and also I'm pretty sure it's a comic book, so shut the fuck up, every single person. But she starts off as part of the Horde. And the Horde is sort of like the big evil. And then she gets kidnapped and she realizes that she's been fighting for the big evil all along. Oh no. Because the thing is, she's sort of manipulated. She's very easy to manipulate in the fact that she is very pure. She's very much like the Virgin Mary pure type person. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone needs to watch She-Ra, because there is some amazing LGBTQ plus representation in there.
Mhm.
Love it. I'm not going to spoil anything, because that is one big spoiler that I won't be spoiling. But just
You
watch
already,
it.
you already did
Find out
it.
for yourself. I kind of did. I kind of did. But we move. She's very much, in the beginning, there's a little bit of that like tumultuous sort of character development where she's transferring from evil to good, but then we do see this character development. She becomes this very much this hero in the eyes of everyone else, and she is pushing forward for what she believes in, and she is not giving up despite all of the controversies around her. um she could be compared to the Chariot in that way, except she's smarter than that.
Yeah.
um and she's much more emotional in that sense. She's doing things because she believes that it is right, and because deep down in her heart of hearts she wants to be good.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, I think when it comes to strength as a card, as characters, they are going to be a little more simplistic. They're going to be like more of a flat character arc characters, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people get worked up about flat like character arc characters. Flat arc characters. Wow. 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 You got what I'm meaning. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to flat arc characters, is that the story kind of goes around them and the story happens because of them, not because they necessarily grow.
Predictable is
Predictable.
the word you're looking for? Predictable? Because I am
No,
confused as fuck.
I know. I just spit out a lot of stuff here. It's actually it's a character writing like study, but anyway.
Hmm.
Another example of that is going to be a good example is what I'm getting at is Black Widow from Marvel. She doesn't really change much throughout her entire arc. Think about it. Like things happen to her and she kind of evolves because of the situation around her like it makes it a necessity. But her as a character is pretty flat. However, she does really represent strength and fortitude because all she does is kind of get things done, but not because she's necessarily hyper aggressive.
She also represents the 79th tarot card, the very secret one, called Very Fucking Pretty.
Yes.
And very intimidating, and I am scared of Black Widow, and I also want her to stand on my neck.
Just step on your head a bit.
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Is this your straight arc right now? Is this what's
this
happening?
this is my straight arc. Listen, there are I can as me, a gay person, I can recognize when there are very, very pretty people around me. And Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, one of those fucking people.
That's fair. Yeah, but that character again, it's very much so that type of character that is, sh- again, she's not like the Chariot, where Chariot kind of fucks around and finds out to a certain extent because they're just there to get things done. Black Widow is a lot more intelligent in the way she makes things move. And again, it's less that she's moving things around and more that sh plot's kind of moving around her because of her influence, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
100%. Um, I understand what you mean now by like flat character arc. I think I am hereditarily is stupid. Oh my god,
Yeah, so
English.
for
Yeah.
context there's a flat character arc where it's like basically they're a lot of times they're kind of the hero of the story. They start good and they end good. There's no really kind of shifting there because everything kind of works around them. There's a positive character arc where somebody goes from being bad to good, and then there's a negative where people go from good to bad. The flat character arc are usually heroes of stories because they don't have to really develop. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of strength card characters are going to be that type. They're going to learn for sure, but they're not going to have a moment where they're going to stumble because, again, fortitude doesn't allow that.
Yeah. And that actually sums up Adora perfectly from She-Ra, because I know I was talking a little bit how she moves from like that sort of evil to good, but the thing is that is a very, very the thing is she transfers sides from like the evil side to the good side, but even when she is on the evil side, she is still that pure of heart good person. So I don't want to really like enforce the idea that it's about this big, big change.
Yeah.
Um just that was sort of an irrelevant part of the story that I brought up because I really like She-Ra. Listen to Kateri. Their pop culture references are slightly better, which is hilarious because they're a grandmother.
It's well, listen, I'm just dialed in is what it is. Honestly, anything in the mental plane is not terribly transformative, which is funny because death is on the mental plane, but we'll get to that. When I say
We'll
transformative,
contradict ourselves later, don't
yeah,
worry.
what we mean by like transformative is like we know that death is going to turn into transformation. It's not going to be anything different, right? It's going to be rebirth. It's
Hmm.
not going to, there's no screwing around on that, right? Well, we find that, like, again, I was figuring that this was going to be a little more difficult, but I'm finding a lot more easier because it's kind of like there's less nuance, I find, with the mental plane, which is strength to temperance. There's a
Hmm.
lot of fucking nuance in spiritual plane, though. That's going to be a shit show.
Can't wait to talk about the star.
I'm already screaming. So yeah, I think what else we had, if we want to go back to Marvel, because again, we had difficulties finding these connections, but Captain Marvel is another example of that.
Hmm.
Another flat character arc where she starts off with that kind of, again, that again, it's not bullish like the Chariot. It's very like it's very held back, right?
Hmm.
She's always kind
It's
of
controlled.
controlled. Yeah, it's very, very controlled, but not controlled in the way that the Chariot, because the Chariot is always going to be a little bit of an asshole, right? It's always going to trample a little bit, while the strength is very considerate about everything around it.
Hmm. Absolutely. That's exactly why my final pop culture connection of the evening, and I don't know if any of you have seen this show. Apparently, I have niche pop culture taste, despite the fact that these are very popular shows.
No, it's just me
Um,
sucking at doing things.
but Kimmy Schmidt from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. It's on Netflix. All of you need to watch it as soon as possible. It's kind of head melting, but in a really, really entertaining way. But basically, throughout the entirety of every single season, Kimmy stays almost exactly the same. And it's because they don't really need to change. Like, Kimmy is this very strong, traumatized woman who's also very naive, let me add. That's a very key plot point in the show. Um, but like she always gets things done. She's very, very motivated to help herself and those around her, and all that she really wants is the best for everyone that's around her, and she will do absolutely everything to get it, even if it doesn't really make a lot of rational sense.
Yeah, exactly. And it's again, these cards are hard to connect to pop culture, and I'm sure there's going to be somebody popping up in the comments, which I actively encourage to tell us what your
Tell
connections
us
are.
we're wrong, please do.
Tell us we're wrong because we are. You should not be listening to
Hmm.
this podcast. No, joking
No.
aside, I love hearing other people's connections. I love hearing it. So if there's anywhere that you can connect to us on, let us know because we do really love to hear some feedback. Um, but yeah, no, Kimmy's a good example of that. I don't haven't watched the show yet, but I have watched a few episodes, so I get the gist. Um, again, this is more of a state of being than a character because
Hmm.
um, all of these types, like all everything on the mental plane, like I said, it doesn't change, but it is shifting. If that makes any
There's sort
sense.
of the mental plane is more so about a mindset than an actual person.
Yeah,
And I know
exactly.
that yeah, like it's more about the person's it's not really going to be a complete person, if that makes sense. It's going to be one large aspect of that person, or it's going to be sort of a specific point in time where they are embodying this sort of mindset, where they have this mindset.
Yeah, and with that being said, there is still connections between like deities, and there's connections like, again, I have a lot of examples for the Hermit. There's gonna be great. I'm gonna have like 100 million connections there. But when it comes to strength, strength is a, I think it's because every character at some point has definitely shown aspects of strength by all means. So and that's where I was getting at with the flat character arc. It's going to be hard to find characters, because as awful as it sounds, the characters we're going to pick for this like for the mental plane are going to be really one dimensional, because again, this is a state of being than an actual character, but it is still a character that we'll find here.
You could sort of say in certain seasons and certain aspects, Joey from Friends for strength.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, not all of the time, but the thing is, Friends is such a long fucking show. But like when you watch because inevitably everyone here is going to rewatch Friends because it's very, very good. And I won't be taking criticism on that. While I also actively encourage the criticism of the show itself because it is a little bit dicey at times.
It's of its time.
Some of the time. But Joey from Friends, in his sort of naive see, the thing is, I know I keep saying sort of naive and irrational when I say these things, but when I'm saying these things, they're sort of oxymorons, because like it's smart to them. Like they know what they're saying and what they're doing and why they're doing it, even if on the outside it doesn't make sense at first.
Yeah.
And with
Definitely.
that awfully, hilariously confusing episode, I've been Owen on Kylock. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I feel like every single time we end these episodes on some like very brief cutoff point before I say too much. But you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, Owen on Kylock. I also run the Soothsayers T Twitter at Soothsayers_T. Check us out.
Listen, you know who I am. I think if you've gotten to this far, I'm sure you've listened to us enough. You know where to find me. Love you all.
Yes. We love you all. Goodbye.
Bye.